Welcome back to Us Mint Mysteries, where we uncover the hidden treasures hiding in plain sight inside your pocket change and old coin jars. Today's video is going to leave you speechless, because we're diving into 6 ultra-rare Kennedy half dollars that could turn an ordinary coin into a life-changing fortune. Some of these coins have shocked collectors at auctions, selling for jaw-dropping prices you would never believe. Could one of these be sitting in your collection right now, waiting to be discovered? Stick with me, because every coin we reveal today climbs higher in rarity, history, and unbelievable value. And before we jump in, be sure you hit that subscribe button and join our community of collectors so you never miss the next treasure hunt. The very first coin on our list is one that surprises almost everyone: the 1983 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, it looks like a fairly ordinary coin, one you might even remember spending in the 1980s without giving it a second thought. But the truth is, hidden within this date is a rarity that has taken the coin collecting world by storm. And if you have one tucked away, especially in extra fine condition or better, you could be holding a small fortune without even realizing it. The 1983 Kennedy half dollar was never released into special collector sets that year. That's right, the US Mint did not produce traditional mint sets in 1982 or 1983, making high-quality examples of these coins much scarcer than most other dates in the series. Instead, the only way to get one was directly from circulation. And let's be honest, once coins hit circulation, finding one that survives in clean, sharp detail is like finding a needle in a haystack. That lack of collector quality supply is what makes the 1983 issue such a standout today. Now, let's talk about the design details. On the obverse, you have the familiar profile of President John F. Kennedy, struck in bold detail, designed to honor his legacy shortly after his assassination. By 1983, the mint was still striking these half dollars in copper nickel clad, not the silver composition of the early 1960s. On the reverse, we see the presidential coat of arms, a heraldic eagle with shield, holding arrows and an olive branch, surrounded by a ring of stars. But what makes this coin so valuable isn't just the design, it's the rarity of its condition. An extra fine grade means the coin shows light wear but retains sharp details in Kennedy's hair, the lettering, and the eagle on the reverse. Most 1983 half dollars today are heavily circulated, worn down, or even damaged from years of use. But if yours is in extra fine condition, collectors will line up for it. And here's where the shock value hits. Depending on the grade, values for the 1983 Kennedy half dollar can absolutely skyrocket. A typical worn example might only fetch a few dollars, but once you cross into extra fine and above, the numbers climb fast. For instance, an uncirculated 1983 half dollar has sold at auction for over $7,000. But when you factor in rare errors, like off-center strikes, double dies, or coins with missing clad layers, the values can shoot into the 6 figures. There are reports of certain pristine or error examples being valued at over $450,000. That's right, nearly $500,000 for a coin most people overlook as pocket change. Imagine finding one of those tucked away in a jar of old coins from the ATS. That's the kind of discovery that changes everything. So, how do you identify if your 1983 half dollar is the jackpot? Start by checking the overall condition. Look at Kennedy's hair detail in extra fine or better. You'll still see the lines clearly, even if lightly worn. Inspect the reverse eagle's feathers, and make sure the lettering around the rim is sharp. Next, always keep an eye out for mint errors, because that's where the real fortune lies. Even small doubling in the date or lettering can push values up dramatically. Collectors know the 1983 Kennedy half dollar as one of those rare modern issues that slipped through the cracks, where scarcity, condition, and history all combine to make a coin worth far more than its face value. And remember, this is only the first coin on our list, and already, we're talking about shocking prices that can climb well into 6 figures. Next up, we have the 1980 Kennedy half dollar, and don't be fooled, this coin might look common, but in the right condition and with the right traits, it has shocked collectors with unbelievable values. At first glance, a fine condition 1980 half dollar may not seem like much. After all, millions were struck that year, and most people think of them as just another pocket change coin from the late Cold War era. But as you're about to hear, the real story of the 1980 Kennedy half dollar is full of surprises that could make you look twice at every single one you come across. Let's start with the history. By 1980, the Kennedy half dollar had been in circulation for over 15 years. Unlike the earliest 1964 issues, which were struck in 90% silver, or the 1965 through 1970 coins, which carried 40% silver, the 1980 version was made entirely of copper nickel clad. That's right, no silver content at all. And yet, despite that, collectors still chase this date for reasons you might not expect. The mintage was actually quite large, with more than 44 million produced in Philadelphia and 33 million from Denver. But here's where things get interesting. Because these were heavily used in circulation, finding one today in pristine condition is far more difficult than you'd think. Most 1980 Kennedy halves are beaten up, worn down, or scarred by years of handling. That makes higher grade survivors incredibly desirable, and while your coin in fine condition might not appear impressive at first, it still holds more value than its face because of the collectors who want a full series. But here's where the real shock comes in the rare errors and special varieties from 1980. Some examples show strong doubling on the obverse, particularly in Kennedy's profile, and the inscriptions. Others are missing part of their clad layer, exposing the bright copper core beneath. And then there are the dramatic off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing entirely. These kinds of errors can turn what looks like an everyday coin into something extraordinary about values, and this is where it gets exciting. A basic fine condition 1980 Kennedy half dollar might only fetch a few dollars from a casual collector. But when you step up the grades into uncirculated, those prices can climb into the hundreds, even thousands. And when you add a dramatic mint error into the mix, the record sales speak for themselves. Certain 1980 half dollars with striking errors have been known to hit auction prices soaring above $125,000. Imagine that a copper nickel coin that once jingled in someone's pocket, now worth more than most luxury cars. And believe it or not, the rarest of the rare have crossed into the six-figure range, with collectors willing to pay well over $475,000 for a perfect, one-of-a-kind specimen. That's nearly $500,000 for a coin you could have easily overlooked in change. The suspense here is real because coins like this remind us that it's not always the silver or gold pieces that bring the big money. Sometimes, it's the everyday clad issues that hide the biggest surprises. So, how do you check your 1980 Kennedy half dollar? Start with condition. In fine grade, you'll still see Kennedy's profile, but with plenty of wear across his cheek and hair. The lettering may be worn, but is still legible. Then look for any unusual features: doubling, off-centering, or that missing clad layer. Even in fine condition, a dramatic error could make your coin worth for more than you'd ever imagine. And here's the kicker: we're only 2 coins in, and already, we've hit values that can stretch into nearly $500,000. Can you imagine what's coming next? If you haven't yet subscribed to us Mint Mysteries, now is the time because you won't want to miss the next incredible Kennedy half dollar on this list. Moving on, let's step back in time to the year 1967, a coin that carries both historical weight and surprising value, the 1967 Kennedy half dollar. At first glance, this coin in fine condition might not look like anything out of the ordinary, but this particular year has an incredible story behind it, and collectors know that even circulated examples can hold far more value than you'd expect. The 1967 Kennedy half dollar is a special issue, unlike the early 1964 release that was struck in 90% silver. This coin was made during a transitional period when the US Mint was moving away from silver coinage. From 1965 through 1970, Kennedy halves were made of 40% silver, and that means every 1967 half dollar still carries real silver content, giving it intrinsic value beyond face. Even in fine condition, that silver weight alone makes it desirable to collectors and investors. But that's just the beginning of the story. You see, 1967 was a fascinating year for U.S. coinage. The mint had suspended proof sets and regular mint sets due to a national coin shortage. Instead, they issued what are known as special mint sets, SMS coins, and some of those 1967 halves struck for the sets are stunning, with sharp details and satiny surfaces. But here's the shocker: within those SMS coins, collectors have discovered bizarre and rare errors, including double dies, off-center strikes, and even coins struck on the wrong planchets. These errors are so scarce that when they surface, the bidding wars are intense. Let's talk about value. In a basic fine grade, a 1967 half dollar is already worth several dollars thanks to its silver content. But step up into higher grades, and things get wild. Uncirculated examples regularly reach hundreds of dollars, while superb gem SMS issues can command thousands. And when a major error enters the picture, prices have skyrocketed past $200,000. That's right, more than $200,000 for a coin struck during a time when most Americans weren't even paying attention to half dollars in their change. Now, here's where it gets jaw-dropping. In recent years, certain pristine 1967 Kennedy halves with dramatic double die obverse errors have shocked the coin community by reaching values close to $500,000. Imagine that, a coin you could have pulled out of a roll of $50 at the bank, now worth the price of a luxury home. That kind of leap in value is why collectors constantly search for these hidden treasures. So, how do you know if your 1967 Kennedy half dollar could be worth a fortune? Start by looking at the details on Kennedy's portrait. In fine condition, the high points of his hair and cheek will be worn, but the major features remain visible. Then, check carefully for doubling in the date or lettering. Even slight doubling can add massive value. Also inspect for any unusual surfaces, missing silver layers, off-center strikes, or planchet flaws. These are the keys that turn a common coin into a life-changing discovery. And here's the thing, coins like this remind us that history, rarity, and condition all matter. A 1967 Kennedy half dollar might seem like just another piece of pocket change from the late 60s, but with silver content, unusual minting history, and the chance of rare errors, it can become a staggering payday. 3 coins down, and the values are already blowing our minds. But I can promise you, the next Kennedy half dollar on our list is even more shocking. Stick with me, because the story is only getting better from here. Next up, we come to the 1971 Kennedy half dollar, and this one might just shock you more than any coin so far. At first glance, the 1971 half dollar looks incredibly common. It was the first year the US Mint struck these coins without any silver content at all, switching fully to a copper nickel-clad composition. Because of that, millions of people overlooked them, assuming they had little or no collector value. But in truth, the 1971 Kennedy half dollar has produced some of the most eye-popping surprises in modern coin history. Here's the backstory. The 1971 half dollar marked the end of the 40% silver era. From 1965 through 1970, half dollars still contained silver, but starting in 71, that silver was completely removed for circulation strikes. The mint produced over 155 million in Philadelphia, and more than 300 million in Denver, huge numbers that would make you think this coin has no chance of being rare. But that's where the hidden treasure lies, because tucked inside this mintage are some shocking errors and unexpected survivors that have commanded massive sums at auction. In fine condition, like the one we're talking about, Kennedy's portrait is worn but recognizable, with his cheek and hair flattened from circulation. On the reverse, the eagle and lettering are still visible, though lacking sharp detail. Normally, you'd expect a coin like this to be worth face value, but 1971 is different. Because of one word, silver. You see, by mistake, a small number of 1971 half dollars were struck on leftover 40% silver planchets from the previous year. These coins look almost identical to the clad versions, but under close inspection or with a simple weight test you can identify the silver ones. And when those show up, they are worth an absolute fortune. Let's talk numbers. Because This is where the wow factor really hits. A standard, fine condition 1971 clad half dollar is only worth about 50 cents to a couple of dollars to a collector. But a 1971 struck on a silver planchet? That's a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. One of these error coins sold for over $130,000 at auction. And pristine uncirculated silver planchet errors have shattered expectations, with prices soaring toward the $500,000 mark. Imagine finding one of those in a box of old coins, thinking it was just pocket change, and realizing it could pay for a dream home. And it doesn't stop with silver planchets. Other rare 1971 errors include double dies, coins struck off-center, and pieces with missing clad layers that reveal the copper core. Each of these can command thousands or tens of thousands, depending on condition. And when a dramatic error combines with high-grade preservation, that's when you see jaw-dropping sales that collectors still talk about years later. So, how do you check your 1971 Kennedy half dollar? Start by looking at the edge. If you see a solid silver-colored edge with no obvious copper stripe, that's a huge clue it could be a silver planchet error. Weighing the coin is another giveaway. Clad examples weigh about 11.34 grams, while the silver planchets weigh closer to 11.5 grams. Even that small difference can mean the difference between 50 cents and 450,000. It's hard to believe, but a coin as common looking as the 1971 Kennedy half dollar can hold one of the greatest treasures in U.S. modern coinage. And that's why collectors never pass up a chance to inspect this date. Because hidden among the ordinary, you might just uncover the extraordinary. We're already 4 coins in, and the stakes keep climbing higher. And trust me, the next Kennedy half dollar we're about to reveal will take this story to a whole new level. Now, let's move to the 1972 Kennedy half dollar, and here's where things get even more fascinating. At first glance, this coin may not seem like much different than the 1971 we just covered, but seasoned collectors know that the 1972 issue hides one of the most legendary varieties in modern U.S. coin history. And if your coin happens to be in extra fine condition or better, you may want to sit down, because the values can be staggering. The 1972 Kennedy half dollar was struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, and the mint was still producing these coins in massive numbers. Over 150 million in Philadelphia alone, plus more than 140 million in Denver. With that kind of mintage, you'd think this coin would never be rare. But the secret lies in a fascinating mistake on the reverse design, one that turned a common coin into one of the great modern rarities. On the back of the Kennedy half dollar is the iconic image of the presidential seal, the eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch. Surrounding the eagle are rays that represent glory. But in 1972, the mint made a mistake with the design master hub, leading to what collectors now call the Type 2 reverse. Instead of the normal sharp, clear earth lines below the eagle, the Type 2 shows almost no detail on the earth, with the islands of the Caribbean looking nearly flat. This variety only appeared in a tiny fraction of the 1972 Philadelphia mintage, making it incredibly rare. Now, let's tie this to values, because this is where jaws start to drop. A regular 1972 Kennedy half dollar in extra fine condition might bring just a couple of dollars. But if you have the elusive Type 2 reverse, even in circulated condition, you could be looking at thousands. In uncirculated grades, collectors have paid over $20,000 for the variety. And here's the real shocker: pristine examples, in the highest grades possible, have sold for well over $350,000, with some experts suggesting that the right auction could push one past the $500,000 mark. All of that for a coin most people still overlook as everyday change. And it doesn't stop there. Along with the famous Type 2 reverse, 1972 Kennedy halves are also known for dramatic mint errors, double dies, missing clad layers, and off-center strikes. Any of these errors can push values higher, sometimes into the six-figure range. Combine one of those rare errors with the Type 2 reverse, and you're looking at a collector's dream piece. The kind of discovery that makes headlines in the numismatic world. So, how do you check your 1972 Kennedy half dollar? Start by flipping it over and examining the globe beneath the eagle. On the common Type 1 reverse, you'll see distinct, sharp earth lines. But on the Type 2, those lines are weak or nearly invisible, and the islands look like blobs instead of sharp outlines. In extra fine condition, even with some wear, this difference is still visible. And it's your first clue that you may be holding a fortune in your hands. Think about it. A simple coin from 1972, struck in copper nickel, with no silver content at all, transformed into one of the most valuable modern coins in existence because of a tiny detail on the reverse. That's the magic of coin collecting, the thrill of discovery, the suspense of not knowing what you might uncover, and the life-changing possibility of holding a $50 worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're already 5 coins deep, and every one has been more shocking than the last. But stay with me, because the final Kennedy $50 on our list is the kind of coin that legends are made of. You won't believe the story behind it. And finally, we come to the 1974 Kennedy $50, a coin that most people would dismiss as ordinary pocket change. Struck in the millions at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints, it was just another year in the long run of clad $50. But collectors know something that the average person doesn't. 1974 hides one of the most shocking and valuable varieties in modern U.S. coinage. If you happen to own one, even in fine condition, you could be holding a piece of history worth an absolutely staggering sum. Let's dive into the story. By 1974, the Kennedy $50 had settled into its role as a circulating coin with no silver content, made entirely of copper nickel clad. The design was familiar: Kennedy's portrait on the obverse, the presidential seal on the reverse. But it's what happened at the Denver Mint that year that would change everything. A small number of 1974D $50 were struck with the dramatic double die obverse, or do, and this error is now one of the most legendary in the entire series. When you look closely at one of these double dies, the doubling is so strong that it almost leaps off the coin. The words, "In God We Trust," show clear, thick doubling, as does the date itself, 1974. Even in fine condition, this doubling is obvious to the naked eye, and it's what makes this variety instantly recognizable. Collectors hunt relentlessly for it, because its rarity and boldness make it one of the ultimate modern U.S. coin errors. Now here comes the shocker. A regular 1974 Kennedy $50 in fine condition is worth just a few dollars, if that. But the double die obverse? That changes everything. Even worn examples can bring thousands. In higher grades, prices are into the tens of thousands. And in the top uncirculated levels, this coin has absolutely rocked the auction world. Some pristine examples of the 1974D double die have sold for over $350,000, with experts suggesting the potential for $500,000 or more in the future. That's right, a copper nickel $50, struck in the mid-1970s, worth the price of a mansion. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Along with the famous double die, other rare errors have been discovered on 1974 halves, including off-center strikes, missing clad layers, and even examples struck on foreign planchets. These are the kinds of mistakes that slip through the cracks of the mint and end up turning an everyday coin into a jaw-dropping rarity. So, how do you check your 1974 Kennedy $50? First, look at the obverse. In fine condition, the wear will be obvious. Kennedy's hair and cheek will be flattened, and the details in the lettering may be soft. But if you see bold, thick doubling in the date or in the motto, "In God We Trust," stop everything and take a closer look. That might be one of the most valuable coins in modern circulation. Think about it. A coin worth 50 cents in 1974, passed over by millions of people for decades, now commanding values that can stretch into the high six figures. That's the kind of story that makes coin collecting thrilling. The kind of hidden treasure that keeps people searching roll after roll, pocket change after pocket change, hoping to strike it rich. And there you have it, 6 Kennedy $50 that could be worth a fortune. From the overlooked 1983 with no mint sets, to the legendary 1974 double die, Every one of these coins carries the possibility of turning ordinary change into life-changing money. The only question left is, do you have one of these treasures hiding in your collection? If you enjoyed this journey through the world of rare half dollars, don't forget to subscribe to us Mint Mysteries, where we reveal more hidden gems, jaw-dropping auction records, and the incredible stories behind America's coins. Until next time, keep searching, because your next coin just might be the one that makes history.